Good evening, everyone. The chief guest has arrived to the campus and he's currently having an interaction with the director. And we expect he will be here in the next 5 to 7 minutes. We will be starting the session after he arrives. Thank you. A warm good evening to the Honorable Chief Guest of the day, Sri Sanjeev Sanyal, sir, member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India and the Chancellor of Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. Respected Vice Chancellor, ma'am, of the Indian Maritime University, Dr. Malini V. Shankar, ma'am. Respected Director, sir. Members of everyone gathered around here today. Distinguished guests, faculty members, cadets. I, Cadet Dipanjan Chatterjee, and my batchmate, Cadet Shreya Pillai, extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you to the 36th session of DMET Samvaad, a series of interactive sessions that strives to improve the connection between the alma mater and its alumni, and also between the maritime industry and the current cadets.
Over time, DMET Samvaad has grown into a platform where pressing issues of both the maritime and non-maritime sectors are discussed with experienced individuals from the respective fields. And it's a matter of immense joy and honor that this 38th session is the first offline session of DMET Samvaad.
Since our establishment in 1949, DMET is the first and foremost name when it comes to marine engineering training and the foundation stone of maritime training in India. In the shipping industry, DMET and its cadets have been a backbone, and the institute has been supported by an alumni network that spans all around the globe, with industry leaders showing presence in top positions of almost every shipping company in the industry. Boasting a legacy of 75 years of marine engineering training in the country, DMET has continued to elevate the standards throughout time, molding the finest marine engineers and future industry leaders.
Keeping in mind of valuable Indian traditions, we would like to invite Sri Sanjeev Sanyal sir, Dr. Malini V. Shankar ma'am, Commodore Ashok Bur sir, Rear Admiral Amit Bose sir, Sri Ashutosh Kashyap sir, and Sri Harsina sir, and Sri Sachin Saurav sir on the stage for the lamp lighting ceremony and set the pace for today's session. So please.
Can we have a big round of applause, please? Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We are really honored to have you at the 38th DMET Samvaad session with us today. Now, on a popular request of cadets, let's watch a video on what the college is all about and what kind of training is imparted to the cadets.
University, Kolkata. erstwhile Directorate of Marine Engineering Training, Kolkata, for the past 7 decades has been the flag bearer in Indian Maritime University, Kolkata campus, erstwhile Directorate of Marine Engineering Training, Kolkata, for the past 7 decades has been the flag bearer in imparting quality education. Its time-tested routine has played a key role in preparing the most sought-after marine engineers in the world. Cadets wake up before the hooter and get ready for their morning physical training routine. The cadets report to the ground, participate in the various physical activities. The physical training of cadets is an integral part of the daily life. It instills discipline and makes them realize the importance of fitness. The activities comprise freehand exercises, various sports activities, followed by their parade practice. Physical session. The cadets get ready for their academic schedule beginning from 0930 hours. The classroom education has been systematically designed to cater to every need of a student. The disciplined conduct and a curious mindset makes the cadets of DMET Kolkata a league apart. The first half of academic classes, the cadets return to their hostels for lunch. Cadets sit and eat together. This strengthens the bond between the cadets and make them realize that they are all equal. The cadets resume their schedules with their physical workshop training. The workshop of GMT is one of the best in the country. It houses some of the rarest machines found on board for the better learning of its cadets. The cadets are made to overhaul and work on the machine to give them a hand-on experience. These skills help the cadets to perform better while working on board ships. After the academic hours are over, the cadets involved in a bunch of activities. Swimming is an important activity that every cadet has to involve. The cadets are trained by professional instructors. The cadets can play their preferred sports that involve football, football, spellers. Cadets change into their uniform and get seated in the mess where they are served the dinner. The cadets, with the sound of the hooter, assemble in the quadrangle for the night fallen. Following the night fallen, the cadets dedicate an hour for their studies. It's light of time for the cadets. With the stroke of the hour hand, the cadet's day comes to an end, and he can now relax and prepare for the next day, waiting to test the perseverance of the cadet.
Well, indeed, a motivating video rather. Now, to set the program's pace, I would like to invite respected director, sir, of IMU Kolkata campus, Rear Admiral Amit Bose, to the stage, sir, please, for delivering the welcome note.
Shri Sanjeev Sanyal, member of the Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of India and Chancellor of GIP, Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Indian Maritime University, Commodore Ashok Bhal, VSM, ex-director of this campus, Professor Dilip Chakravarti, Mr. Sudipto Ghosh, DG, Bengal Chamber of Commerce, members from the ACE, DMET, the Naval Veterans, DMET Samvaad team, distinguished guests, dignitaries, members from the media, heads of the department, faculty members, and dear students, both at this campus and those who have joined us online on this occasion of the 30th edition of the DMET Samvaad. Good evening. It's indeed a matter of immense pride for the entire team at IMU Kolkata campus to host such a constellation of luminaries today evening, each one a doyen in their respective domains. At the very outset, let me welcome Shri Sanjeev Sanyal sir for accepting the invitation from DMET Samvaad and IMU to visit this campus at such a short notice and gracing this occasion with your presence. We are indeed looking forward to hear you talk on shipbuilding technologies which were used in the early maritime history of our nation. Let me also welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Malini Shankar Madam for having agreed to spare her time from a busy schedule to visit this campus. Your presence certainly adds an additional layer of aura to this event, especially since we are getting to meet you after having been recently adjudged the Woman Personality of the Year in the maritime sector during the prestigious ShipTech 2024 award. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a big hand. Let me also welcome the dignitaries from the Bengal Chamber of Commerce, ACE, DMET, veterans from the Naval Fraternity, for having accepted our invitation and graced us with your presence. I also want to specially welcome Commodore Ashok Bhal, VSM, ex-director of this campus, who has conceptualized this DMET Samvaad activity and still acts as a member to the budding maritime engineers. I also welcome the DMET Samvaad team, my co-host, who have quietly done all this paid work and coordinated various associated activities. On the lighter note, it also means that if something goes wrong, whom do you have to blame? Without much ado, I would like to hand over the podium to my co-host for conducting the rest of the event. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your words. I'm sure the cadets will have something to take away with them as a food for thought. Now, with all due respect, I cordially invite Shri Ashutosh Kashyap sir, roll number 7585, DMET class of 2018, and Shri Harsina sir, roll number 8111, DMET class of 2020 to the stage to acquaint the audience with what DMET Samvaad truly is.
Namaste, everybody. I'm Ashutosh Kashyap, 2018 pass out, roll number 7585, proud Southern. So I am here to reflect on the legacy of DMET MERI. Since its inception, DMET has been at the forefront of marine engineering education, training, and shaping the future of the marine industry. Through the rigorous academic program, hands-on training, and a commitment towards the innovation, DMET has fostered a generation of professionals who are not only technically proficient, but also environmentally conscious and socially responsible. Our legacy is not just in the numbers of graduate marine engineers, but our alumni have excelled in various fields. I will name a few of them. Shri Ravi Mehrotra sir is a leading maritime entrepreneur recognized globally. Shri Shashi Prakash sir is our recent pass out and is in Jharkhand cadre Indian Administrative Service. Sonali Banerjee ma'am was the first female marine engineer and currently she is the senior surveyor of IRS. Shri Sankalp Pratap, head of department entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay, and Shri Sanjay Kundu sir, DGP Himachal Pradesh. So DMET has played a crucial role in programming the research developments in marine engineering. And as we look to the future, let us continue the value that our college, DMET, MERI, and IMU KC has given in us. Excellence, innovation, and commitment to the nation and the marine industry. Thank you. Now, today we have assembled here for the DMET Samvaad session. So DMET Samvaad session is the brainchild of my junior and the convener of this whole event, Harsh Sinha. So Harsh will tell you the whole story, how it got framed and how we build up this platform.
Thank you so much, sir. And a warm good evening to all my juniors, batchmates, and my seniors. Good evening. Thank you. So I will quickly summarize what is about the DMET Samvaad. The genesis of DMET Samvaad lies in a long felt need to connect and provide a digital platform for the alumni to rewind their good old days and rejuvenate the bond with this institution and the cadets. The time was of COVID-19 pandemic, and students, most of the juniors, particularly first years, second years, seniors, all were disconnected from the regular college activities like regular fall-ins, parades, PTs, which makes this college a unique among all the normal engineering colleges. So after profound deliberations with some of our senior alumnus and the then director, Commodore Ashok Bahal sir, we have started this initiative. It was from its second month of inception that this initiative was supported by DMET Alumni Association, Singapore, and DMET Mary Ex-Cadet Association, Mumbai, with the basic aim to aware the freshers of maritime sectors and the intellectual echelons at large. Gradually, we played a significant role in organizing Alumni Night and expanded our tentacles by inviting some significant people like former Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Karamveer Singh sir, former President of the Rajasthan Cricket Association and our alumnus, who is also an IAS, Sanjay Dikshit sir, Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam, Ravi K. Mehrotra sir, and many people who are budding entrepreneurs and leaders from the shipping field and various prominent, who are leading various prominent companies and major recruiters. We consider them as illuminating source of inspiration who are filled with vigor and charisma of nationalism, excellence, and vision. Since vision of our Indian Maritime University is Samundram Gyanam, Gyanam Samundram. So we have tried to extract people from this huge ocean of knowledge to share their insights so that junior cadets can get a flavor of interacting with the industry people and multi-dimensional talents of alumnus who have graduated from this campus and who have been to this campus. As an institute, DMET Calcutta is serving our nation from past 7 decades through quality marine engineers, intellectuals, and vibrant workforce. The vision of our Honorable President of Constituent Assembly, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who also served as the first President of Independent India, is in the college gate itself. Thus, in his visionary undertaking, I perceive, and we all perceive in DMET Samvaad, our role as the squirrel from Ramayana, who wanted to contribute its tiny yet significant role in the construction of Ram Setu. I believe our commitment is parallel to the squirrel's dedication to the cause of nation building by giving back to the institute who mold essential skills in us during most productive years of our life. To just to end this long uh, long extempore which I am giving, the motto of DMET Samvaad is Shang Yorvi Tatvantuna. The verse is from Rigved in context of worshipping water, which means, O water, you are filled with auspicious divinity. May that auspiciousness flow to us. I believe that jointly our pious intention will be inclined for DMET Calcutta and nation as a whole. This place, I repeat, this place has a legacy for being the center of excellence in maritime engineering. Thanking you. I hope that together we will be shining. DMET is like the miniature version of Bharat, which has its glorious past and now is in the phase of resurgence. May DMET and Bharat shines globally and its comprehensive power rises. I personally wish to see my country and my college to be the center of excellence. That is a wish to Guru when we are celebrating 100 years of India's independence in 2047. With these words, I would like to invite our mentor, Commodore Ashok Bahal sir, who was the former director of Indian Maritime University, Kolkata campus, and who has played a significant role in this particular initiative. He has worked in various leadership positions, such as being the chairman and managing director of Hindustan Shipyards. And to add more detail, he is also leading the IIT Kharagpur Alumni Association and one of the prominent startups of India, Urban Company. Thank you, sir, and I welcome you to the stage.
Respected Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, sir, member, Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister, Dr. Malini Shankar, Vice Chancellor, Rear Admiral Amit Bose, Director IMU Calcutta, distinguished guests, Mr. Dilip Chakravarti, Mr. Ghosh, the senior naval officers here, Alumni Association, I can see a lot of senior cadets, faculty, staff, media, cadets, good afternoon. There was a time when I had also thought of in early 70s to join DMET. Could not fructify that. And at that time, which people forget, it used to be called the IIT of Marine Engineers. That was the name which was given to it. So, but I went to another IIT Roorkee and then finally came to for my MTech to IIT Kharagpur in 81 to 83. And there were only three things. I used to visit Calcutta, Netaji Subhash. There were only three things known to people at that time: Eden Garden, Fort William, and the Marine College. That is the legacy what this institute caters. Right from DMET to Mary to IMU Calcutta, the brand value remains intact. Today in the whole world, any person who is an ex-DMETian is seen with a certain amount of expectations, discipline, professional knowledge of his, the initiative, the enthusiasm, what is there. So when in 2020, Harsh Sena, Sachin Mehto, etc., they came up that we should be connected to our alumni through this DMET Samvaad system. I immediately agreed to it only for one reason, which was in the back of my mind. I have been an alumni for 2 IITs, but the extent of camaraderie and bonhomie, which I saw in the DMETians, was unparalleled and still is unparalleled. You meet any senior DMET alumni, his heart and soul is here. They keep visiting and they all have continuously been starting on one thing, that the brand value should not go down. It is the responsibility of the director to ensure that. So we started that session. It was not only for people to tell something about the marine engineering, but the various experiences, the various topics. I would just list down the few topics which we have covered in the 36 sessions. Prospect after training at DMET, resurgence of the maritime industry, thinking outside the box, gender equality. When I was there, we had only handful of girls here, and today the number is in 4 to 5 years is touching almost 100. What are the various avenues besides the maritime domain? We all are aware that be from technocrats to shipyards, to the civil services, to the police, industrialists, the METNs are everywhere. Arshina named of DGP Mr. Kundu, but I remember the DGP of JNK, Mr. VK Singh also came and met me here. And he suddenly entered my office and said, I am DGP JNK. So I said, sir, most welcome, but they didn't feel bad. He said, I have just come to go around the institute in the quadrangle because my heart and soul is there. That is the legacy. This institute is there. And we have started various soft skill courses. We have had addresses on green shipping, application of artificial intelligence, and various subjects where the esteemed alumni all over the world have come. And whenever we ask any alumni that please join us for this DMET Samvaad, we have not received a no. They were more than willing to spend their time and effort here. So to keep this brand value, to keep this sort of faith, what the maritime world has got in this institute, the onus is on the cadets who are sitting here today. You are the torchbearers. Please keep up. You can see the fire burning in the alumni. Our country has got a very glorious maritime past. Today we are going to hear the brainchild of Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, the state ship projects. And this is, I believe, a 2000 years old legacy as to how at that time, without using any metallic nuts, bolts, how with the plants, coir ropes, the ship used to be made. And we would indeed be, the country would be fortunate that by early next year, this ship would fructify and would roll on. So I would not take much time today. Thanks a ton. It was an honor to be present here today for this very important event, and my best wishes to everybody on this momentous occasion. Thanks a lot. Jai Hind.
Well, that was indeed a very motivating piece of speech from Sir. And now I would like to thank everyone for your presence in this session, of course. And thank you, sir, for your very impactful words again. And we are very grateful to have you with us. And your contribution over the years have left a very grateful presence of you among the cadets. Now, it is my distinct honor to introduce the chief guest of the day, the keynote speaker of today's session, Sri Sanjeev Sanyal, sir, who is currently serving as the member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council of India. Sir is an acclaimed economist, a historian, and a writer, a Rhodes Scholar with an impressive career in global finance. He has also authorized several best-selling books on Indian history and economics, some of which, ladies and gentlemen, you have seen at the right outside the auditorium. Mr. Sanyal's valuable insights on today's topic, Stitched Ship Project, revisiting our ancient maritime past, will give them a holistic approach to the ancient methods of ship structuring and naval architecture. In fact, this is a topic on which he has been emphasizing on for quite a long time. Now, we are privileged to have him with us today. Hence, I cordially invite Shri Sanjeev Sanyal sir to kindly take up the stage and share his insights with us. Sir, please. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Dr. Malini Shankar, Commodore Behel, Rear Admiral Bose, faculty, students, and alumni of this fantastic institution, IMU Kolkata campus. Thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity to come here and speak at this DMET Samvaad on a topic that many of you know is very dear to me. I particularly like the vibe, in a sense, of the campus. The very fact that your alumni still remembers their roll number is quite extraordinary, I have to say. I have no idea what my Sri Ram College of Commerce roll number was. So if you like my presentation and you think it's good enough, please give me a DMET roll number. Now, the topic I'm going to speak about is about a project that the government of India is doing, of which I'm involved, called the Stitch Ship Project. So if we can just flick to the next slide, right? If we can put on this. Down is the, okay, here we go. Okay. So this is the Stitch Ship Project, and what this is about is really trying to recreate India's maritime history. Now, for reasons that one can keep debating, for some reason, unless you happen to be somebody who is directly doing something relating to ships or the maritime arena, the way we Indians tend to think of our history is strangely landlocked. Now, this is very strange for a country which is the only country in the world which actually has an ocean named after itself, right? And this is very, very strange because, in fact, if you look at our legends, our history, we are a country with such a long coastline that it is actually impossible to understand our history unless you think of us as a maritime country. So I've long wondered, why is it that we have this landlocked view? Maybe it's because our capital, Delhi, is landlocked. I don't know. But in recent years, there has been a rediscovery of this maritime history, of which I have played a small part. But much of that has really been still about the conventional digging up of archaeology or texts and so on. So what I'm going to talk about here is of something somewhat different as a way of revisiting our maritime past. So what I'm going to do in this presentation is to first give you a historical perspective, give you a sense of the project, the earlier constructions that have been used using this stitching technique, an understanding of the art of stitch ships, reconstruction of how we're going about reconstructing this stitch ship, and the further course to steer. Now, as I told you, India has actually got an extraordinary long maritime history. So Indian mariners were sailing out from Harappan ports in Gujarat, like Dholavira, out to the Middle East, to Persian Gulf, to countries like Oman and what is now UAE and Bahrain and all the way to Sumeria, as far back as 4,500 years ago. Now that puts us in the same league as the Phoenicians. And when you think of maritime history, sadly the Phoenicians tend to capture, or the Athenians tend to capture the history. But in fact, we have a history that is at least as old as the Phoenicians and certainly older than that of the Athenians. So the question is, if this is this length of history, what is the kind of ships that we were using?
And unfortunately, we don't know what these Harappan ocean-going ships actually looked like. We have some images, but those are sadly only of river ships. And since you are from a maritime background, you will know that river ships and ocean ships are completely different things. So people who confuse the two, when some historians do, they simply don't understand naval architecture. So sadly, we know that Indians were sailing to all these places because we have lots of evidence of it, but we have no idea what those ships look like. But the naval culture did not die out with the Harappans. It continued into the subsequent centuries, into the Iron Age, and then into subsequent centuries. And thankfully, from around about the first, second century BC onwards, we begin to get some sense of the kinds of ships Indians were building. And we're using these ships to sail out westward, to trade with the Romans and the Persians and so on. And they were sailing out eastward to Indonesia, to what is now Vietnam and Cambodia, and then even onwards to China, Japan, and Korea. In fact, people forget that the way Korean history starts in Korean textbooks is with the marriage of a local prince to a princess from Ayodhya, from India. That's how their history starts. And how did she get there? She went there by sea. So what did these ships look like? Now we know that in this long history, we relied on a very peculiar technology called stitch ships. Now this is not because we didn't know how to create rust-free nails. We did. By certainly the Gupta period, we knew the technology of rust-free nails, because even today in Mehrauli, there is an iron pillar which has not rusted. So we had the technology of rust-free nails. And yes, we did occasionally build nailed ships. But the dominant technology that was used to build these ships was stitching. And you see this in paintings, you see this in sculpture. Here, for example, we have a relief sculpture from the Boga Mandap of the Jagannath temple. This is the sculpture on the left. And if you look at the hull of the ship, you can clearly see that it is stitched together. Can you see it? Is that clear? Yeah. And you also see that from a representation of a boat from the Babarnama. Again, it's stitched together. So this is a peculiar technology. And using these ships, we were making these massive voyages across the oceans, not to the west, across the Arabian Sea, up the Red Sea, trading with the Egyptians, trading with the Jordanians, then into the Persian Gulf, trading with the Iranians or Persians, and with the Mesopotamians and so on. And of course, as I said, eastward to Indonesia, Singapore, and so on. So the stitch technology is something I began to look into when I wrote a book a few years ago called The Ocean of Churn. And at some point, I became somewhat obsessed with it. So I began to see if there is somebody in India who remembered this technology. And what I discovered is along the coast of India, there were still a few artisans who were building small boats. They were not ships. They are local fishing boats, which can carry maybe 4 or 5 people for a small fishing expedition. But they still sort of remembered how to do the stitching. Some of them, because their families had been doing this for generations, they still remembered some of these ratios for building big ships, but nobody had built a big ship in generations. So I thought, before this whole thing completely disappears, why don't I get hold of some people to try and at least document and maybe reconstruct a ship using ancient techniques. While I was doing this, I also discovered some old manuals in ancient texts which talked about how to build these ships. So one of these is, for example, the Yukti Kalpataru. So it's an ancient text from the 9th century or 9th, 10th century by Raja Bhoj. And it talks about various kinds of ships that used to exist in ancient times. So he mentions, for example, that there were ships called the Samanya, or the ordinary, and there were Vishesha, the special ships. And these special ships in particular were used for sea voyages. And he gives the sizes of these ships. And they are huge if the big ships were massive. So there were smaller ships were, as you can see, they were length was 32 cubits, but the very biggest ships were 112 cubits long. That is large even by modern standards. What is also interesting is that the ratios, at least of the Vishesh ships, that was the specialized ships, were quite interesting. So you can see the length is whatever it is, depending on this type of ship. But the breadth, as you can see, is 1:8 ratio. Those make for very long, thin ships. And since you are into marine architecture, you will realize that while it will give you good speed, it will probably very, very unstable. But yet they were building these kinds of ships, and of course the height as well. We also know that many of them had cabins. So there were ships which had cabins in the front, they had some at the back, some had along the whole length of it. So all these kinds of large ships existed. And you have his visitors from that time, or foreign writers from that time, who also mention some of these ships. So it's not just that we were talking about it. There were foreign travelers, foreign writers who were mentioning these massive Indian ships that were being built. For example, Ptolemy in the 1st century AD mentions that Indian shipbuilders were building fleets of up to 2,000 ships. And some of these were capable of accommodating 1,000 troops, horses, vast quantities of supplies. So, even by modern scales, 1,000 ships, no matter how cramped they were, this is not a small ship. Even allowing for some exaggeration, this is not small ship. Marco Polo in 1300, he talks about ships that was huge in size, which had just the crew was 150 to 300 people, and was propelled by oars, sails, had multiple decks. Some of them had 60 cabins. And as I said, we knew how to make nailed ships as well. So although we had this preference for stitch ships, Marco Polo mentioned specifically that we did have the technology for nailed ships as well. Then there's Niccolo Conti, 1400s. He talks about ships weighing about 1,000 tons with 5 sails. We have Santo Stefano. And all of these are before the arrival of the Portuguese with Vasco da Gama in the Indian Ocean world. And he talks about stitch ships with cords and sails and so on. Now, what did these ancient stitch ships look like? Well, there is the oldest one that I could find of a representation is actually a painting from the 5th, depending on when you think exactly it was painted, but from the Ajanta caves. So let's say it's from the 4th, 5th century, and it shows us sailing ship, which you can see it's hopefully clear enough. But the ship has 3 sails, as you can see, and a foresail. There's a man standing there. If you can see it clearly enough, it has these pots, probably for carrying water, I don't know. But it's clearly an ocean-going ship. It has these 2 trailing oars that you can see. It doesn't have a rudder. So these are important clues to what these technologies were. So, for example, ancient ships, not just in India, but otherwise, did not have a rudder. They used to have a trailing oar for giving it direction. And so this is one example of that. Now, why did we use stitch ships when we had the technology for nailed ships? We don't know. It's a matter of speculation. But one of the things it certainly did was it gave the hull a degree of flexibility. Now, it seems to be that this was, for all its inefficiencies, this flexibility was valued by mariners in ancient times for some reason. And I don't know why, but one of them may be, but remember that Indians were using the monsoon winds to sail, which means they weren't sailing during the time when the seas were calm, but deliberately sailing during the time when the sea was rough. And they are sailing through waters which have lots of atolls. They have got lots of islands like the Lakshadweep, the Maldives, and so on. Lots of sandbars. So for example, if you were coming up the river into the Hooghly, you would have to go past the Sundarbans full of sandbars and mangroves. So one of the major problems probably they had was getting stuck in either a reef or a sandbar where your ship would simply fall apart. One of the advantages of a stitch ship is, although it's a somewhat inefficient profile from an aerodynamic perspective, it doesn't fall apart very easily because it's stitched together. The hull is flexible. So maybe the advantages of that were so great that people preferred it. I don't know, I'm speculating. But whatever it is, this technology was the dominant technology till well into the 1500s. And eventually when the Indians began to shift to other techniques, they didn't do it because of the inefficiencies, but because of cannons. The problem was not just that somebody else could hit you with a cannonball, but that with a stitch ship, since you were stitching it together, these ships could not take the recoil of their own cannons. So it would loosen the ropes and the stitching, and you would begin to leak. So ultimately, we gave up on this technology because of artillery. Still, the technology was not entirely given up. So you see, for example, in present day Karnataka coast, you still have these very small stitched boats where some of this technique is still sort of remembered. These are very small craft, but this technique is now rapidly dying out. We are basically witnessing the last generation of shipbuilders who still build it this way. People are rapidly moving on to modern fiberglass or whatever it is they're using. So the aim of the project was, before this entire thing is forgotten, why don't we use the last of these traditional artisans and try and actually see if we can build an ancient stitched ship. So the first thing that we wanted to do was to do a reconstruction of an ancient stitched ship. We thought it would be a fun project to revive the cultural memories of India's glorious maritime history. It would give us a better sense of the monsoons and the equatorial currents because, we would be, if we sailed it, we would be at the mercy of nature. It would generate, of course, a sense of pride, but also a sense of ourselves as a risk-taking, adventurous country, which we were. And a lot of that has unfortunately fallen away over time. And of course, to undertake a voyage along these ancient sailing routes as a cultural outreach to countries with whom we have had thousands of years of links. Now, we are not the first people to attempt to build a reconstructed ship. There have been other attempts in other places. So, for example, in 1981, there was the Arabs ship of the Arab design called the Sohar was done. There was the Gyptus, which was a reconstruction of a 6th century Greek ship. There's a more recent one called the Jewel of Muscat, which was done in 2009, which is reconstruction of a Omani ship from the 9th or 10th century. The wreck was found in Indonesia, and it was then the Omanis then reconstructed it. It's called the Jewel of Muscat, and they sailed it around. So there are other attempts, but no attempt was made to reconstruct an Indian ship. So this is the first time that we are going to try and reconstruct an ancient Indian designed ship. So we decided first you've got to choose the period that you're going to do this, because remember, it's a very long history. The ship technology changed over long periods of time. So we decided to zero in on the Gupta period. One, because as I mentioned, we actually had a artistic representation of a Gupta era ship in Ajanta. So what are the materials you need in order to build such a stitch ship? Well, obviously you need different kinds of wood for different parts of the ship, but you also need the stitching equipment. And what is used to stitch? Well, in India, we used coir rope, coconut coir rope. It's not the one you get in the market. It's a specialized rope. It has to be curated by in salt water and coconut oil, and it's repeatedly cured in it to make it much stronger than the usual kind, but still it's fundamentally coir rope. You need cotton fiber for stuffing between the planks and for other uses. You need needles, obviously, for stitching. Then you need a resin called kudrus. This is important because this is the resin that is used to plug the holes for the stitching holes that we have. It is then, this kudrus is dissolved in fish oil, usually sardine oil in India, but in other places, for example, the Jewel of Muscat in Oman used shark oil. It doesn't matter, it smells just as bad. But I have been assured by the people who did the Jewel of Muscat voyages that one, the smell does go away partly, and secondly, that after a few days, you completely get used to it. Then, of course, you have lime powder for improving the durability of the wood, and brick red pigment for the external hull color. So these are the various things you need for the stitching. And here is how you go about building it. So this is the ship we are now building, and this is a photograph from that. You start out by putting in the keel first. Now, since many of you are naval architects, you will understand that typically when you build ships by nailing or now welding it together, you actually create a frame, and then you weld the or nail or whatever the hull onto it. But in the stitch ship technique, the hull is actually built first without a frame, and the frame is retrospectively fitted in, and I will show you that later. Then you put, of course, the stern post and the stem post, and then you start the construction. Now comes the issue of shaping the planks. So now remember, you have to shape the planks. You've got the planks have to be curved, and they're curved in 3 dimensions. They're not just curving around it, they're also sort of moving inwards in a certain way. And the shape of the hull changes at different levels, right? So this is a really skilled job. And to do this, we have got a team which we got from Bepur in Kerala, led by a shipwright, Babu Sankaran. His family has been building these kinds of ships for thousands of years. And he does this bending of the planks with simply by eye. So he knows the ratios by tradition. He's not measuring any of this. He just does it by eye. So how do you go about it? Well, you first fill a steam chamber and you put the plank in. So when you heat it in the steaming, it softens the fibers. And then once you put it in it's there for hours to soften it. But when you take it out, the plank is soft. But you have about just 1 minute to shape it before it cools down and all the fibers set. Okay? And I'm now going to show you how this is done. So here is the steaming and planking, and so this is the video.
Also in the steam chamber, we are putting out the steam, as you can see. These are the planks getting left after being steamed. So after the steaming, this is the shaping process. As you can see, they have taken this steamed wood, and they have literally minutes before it again kind of dries up and takes shape. So they have to do this shaping as soon as they can. So it's being bent, as you can see, and then weights and other things are used.
So this is, by the way, being done in a shipyard in Goa called Hodi on Diwar Island. And you can see how they are shaping this. Now, once you're getting all of this, the question is, how do you then take these planks and begin to create the outer shell? So you take the planks and you create these series of holes on both the planks. And then you have to stitch it. So you create a wadding between them. And then you take the ropes that I talked about through them using a peg. I've kind of tried to explain how it is. It's a very intricate process, and I'll try and show you more images of it. But basically, you use the coconut coir rope, and you stitch this together. It is done not just going back and forth, but it is done 1, 2, X, 1, 2, X, and so on. That's how the stitching goes. And here I can see then the kudrus resin is then applied between the pranks to kind of close the holes. And you can see the wadding is hammered down. And the stitching follows, as I said, the 1, 1, X, 1, 1, X pattern. It's a very painstaking work. So let me tell you, the team of about 25 who is building the ship, you're just sitting there. Sometimes, even sitting and watching them is tiring. And then once this kind of general shape begins to happen, you begin to put the frame in retrospectively, as I told you. And so this is what the frame is done. This is where you're going to put the ballast. So this has to be strong. Yeah, and ballast in ancient times was heavy granite stone. We will probably use a combination of lead and stone, because lead is what is now more commonly used. And then you have the stern post and the stem post, which are stitched into the keel. And then, of course, the horizontal crossbars are used to give it more strength. So that's how you end up with the body of the ship. This is more on the stitching and waterproofing, so that you get a sense of how and then, of course, putty is applied with the holes, the plug with the this is cut putty made from the kudrus. And then, of course, you're coating it in fish oil inside and outside. Again, as I mentioned, I have been assured that the fish oil wears off after a little while, and in any case, you sort of get used to it. I shall find out. And then, how do you go about doing this reconstruction? So, as I told you, I had been researching all this for a couple of years, and then I got more serious about it during the COVID period. And it happened to be that I was at that time writing the economic survey that many of you may know about. The finance ministry, every year, the government of India issues an economic survey. So one of the young economists who was working for me at that time on producing the economic survey, she was married to a naval architect called Hemant. So one day, Hemant unsuspectingly came to meet me, and I immediately drafted him into this project, which he did quite enthusiastically. So now I had somebody who could do the drafts. And so I began to work more seriously on it, and I created a framework. I first thought that maybe it would be easier to get the Indian private sector interested in this. And some of them hummed and hawed. But then ultimately, I took this plan to the Honorable Prime Minister, and he was very enthusiastic. And he said, yeah, if it can be done, let's see if the Ministry of Culture can be gotten interested in it. Turns out the Ministry of Culture has a program called Project Mosam, which wants to do this kind of thing. They were looking for a project, so I got there at the right time. So they provided the funding. And then I went to the Indian Navy. So the Ministry of Defense and the Indian Navy were very kind and said, yes, we will help you curate and put it together and provide a crew as well. The Ministry of External Affairs got very interested in it because they said that, yes, great, we can sail it around and try and use it for cultural outreach. And of course, the Ministry of Shipping and DG Shipping, who of course have to give me lots of exemptions from the usual norms you need to build a seaworthy ship. So all of this, we are putting it together. So in 2023, this began to gather momentum. And at the beginning of this year, we actually began to put it together. We hired Babu Sankaran and his team, which I mentioned. The good news about Babu Sankaran was that he was also involved in the Jewel of Muscat project. So he is used to the idea of reconstruction as opposed to a modern ship, which is useful because it means that he's used to the fact that, there are many modern inventions that we simply will not use just because it didn't exist at that time. So this is just a line drawing of this. It's a schema of the Ajanta ship. You saw the painting, but this is what it looked like as a schema. So this is roughly what we want to do. Obviously, this is an architect. This is a artist's vision of it. But it tells us a few important details. First of all, the use of the trailing oar, right? It doesn't have a rudder. This is the way you're going to rudder it. It tells us that it has multiple masts, the use of a foresail. It tells us, if you go even today, there's this They paint the eye in front of the ship. You go to any small fishing boat along the Indian coast, you'll see the eye. Evidently, that was true even in Gupta period, and so on and so forth. You can see a few portholes for the lower deck and so on. So you get some sense of this thing, of a sense of this ship. Now, obviously, you have to convert it into an actual ship. That's an artistic thing. So we then began to create line drawings. And so now the line drawings that we have suggest that we will go for a ship that has 2 masts, not 3. It was getting too crowded with 3. We will retain the foresail. And so this is what it will look in both cross sections and from the top view. Again, as I said, this is a room full of naval architects, so you will appreciate what it would look like when we try and build it. And you can see that we were going to have the trailing oars. So this does have a trailing oar, doesn't have a rudder. It has square sails, very important. Remember, this is from the 4th, 5th century. People have not yet invented the lantern sail. We are still using the square sail. And there are some advantages of square sail, but there's one major disadvantage, that you cannot sail too much away from the direction of the wind. So with later lantern sails, you can sail at a big, almost 45, 90 degrees even angle to the wind. But here you basically have to sail along with the wind. This is important because obviously it determines where you can go, that you can basically sail where the monsoon winds are taking you. You can't just sail off in an angle to that. What is the size of the ship we are building? Well, it's the original length was 19.6, but I think we need to update this presentation. It's now about 21, 22 meters long. The breadth is 6.5 meters long. The depth is 3.4 meters. It's approximately going to weigh about 54 tons now, and a crew of one captain, 15 people from the Navy who will be trained specially to sail this, because as you can see, this does not sail like a traditional or not traditional. It doesn't sail like a modern sailing ship, which most sailors will know how to sail. As I said, doesn't have a lantern, has a flexible hull. We don't know how this flexible hull will behave in high seas if you're in a storm. We don't know what on earth happens when you use, instead of a rudder, you have these trailing oars. So we have been really reaching out to the Omanis, who had a ship from a later period, 500 years later, but still, at least they have some experience of some of these issues. But our ship has a distinctly different design, a more archaic design. So we will really have to sail the ship and figure it out. So 15 crew members plus 1 random economist. And here are the development plan lines. I'm stressing this. I would usually skip all of this if I was talking to a general audience, but I think this audience will appreciate all of this. Some of you probably do this for modern ships. And then the rigging plan. So sense of the rigging plan. And then the sail and mast plan. As you can see, two plus the foresail. Here is the stitching plans that we have used, as I told you. It has the wadding and you're stitching along it. Framing plan. So you know there are these crossbars that go across to provide you with there's the plan top view of the beams and then of the frame itself. Now, one of the interesting things we decided to do, although of course we are building it using ancient texts and techniques and artisans and so on, and a lot of it is being done by eye, we decided that for the first time we will take a stitch ship and subject it to a lot of the modeling that modern ships go through. And he said, because I had the access to the Indian Navy and they build their ships, and I was working with a team of naval architects who routinely do the modeling. I said, let's subject it to the same modeling and see what happens. So of course we were going to do the Navier-Stokes modeling as well. So most of you are familiar with all of this, but of course a ship, as you know, gets 3 types of pressures on it. There are the wave resistance and wave effects, which is the potential flow effects. You have the boundary layer, viscosity, skin friction. And then, of course, you have the viscous pressures of the back and the resistance from the wake. So all of this is modeled into the flow dynamics Navier-Stokes equations, which also you'll be familiar with. You have the pressure forces, the viscous forces, and the body forces. As you know, this is the conservation of mass equations for the rate of increase of mass in a Newtonian non-compressible fluids. So all of these are equations which many of you are very familiar with. And then, of course, we have to think about movement in 6 different directions. They are the linear ones, forward, backward, up, down, and sideways. And then you have the rotational forces, which are up, down, but rotational, sideways, rotational, and then forward, backward, rotational. And you have the drag, ship motion, wave attraction, all of these equations are then working on. Now, then we did the 3D modeling of the hull. This has obviously been done by the Navy guys, not me, but they used a 3D CAD model, which some of you also are probably familiar with. And we began to model it. Not easy to do because here, remember, you don't only have to model the outside, you also have to model for the stitching, which sort of protrudes out. So that really complicates the modeling, let me tell you. But then we began to doing the fluid dynamics modeling. We are still doing some of this, particularly for the stitching. And of course, you have to do it, solve the Navier-Stokes for every little small bit for doing the meshing. And this is particularly important here because, as I told you, the stitching protrudes. So what is true of something, one part is not true of another part. So you have to really mesh the whole thing. Very, very complicated thing to do. Thank God for computers. Trying to do this manually would have been impossible. And then you begin to do the surface wave pattern things. This is just the Kevin Wynne patterns in the model. Later on, we took all of this for, we have been taking them to IIT Madras for doing the tank testing as well. But this is just what we thought is all the pressure coefficients that we were getting, the resistance plots. And then we began to build a scaled model. So this is a scaled model that we have built. Then here is the scale model of the stitch ship. And then we then began to prepare it for testing. So here is what we did. Then we have the model testing in the towing tank that we do. And here is the video so that you get a sense of how the towing tank is done. You get wave patterns. The video didn't play for whatever reason, but never mind. And you then get new resistance plots, which are significantly different from what we modeled. But I told you, the models are first of all not built for ancient ships, and all kinds of strange things begin happening when the hull is flexible and you have stitching on the outside. We are going to reinstate. I think we didn't do the stitching in the model correctly. Now that we really understand the stitching, we're going to redo it, and we're going to do another round of resistance plots. Just to put it together, it'll at worst come out as an interesting paper for the naval architecture journals. And then what are we going to do with this? Well, there are further things. One is, obviously, we're going to build all of this, the ship itself, but then there are other details that you have to put. For example, anchors. So we have some examples of ancient anchors. We have anchors from the period of the Guptas, but we have some really ancient anchors. So although we do not know what Harappan ships look like, we do know what their anchors look like. And these are anchors that have been dug up from Dwarka. So Dwarka turns out to be, especially Bet Dwarka, which is a small island off Dwarka, which was clearly a major port in the Bronze Age. And there are a lot of anchors, stone anchors that have been found there. And they have a particular shape. They are these triangular ones are from that Harappan period. And in case you want to know what they look like in actual use, So you see the triangular one that we have circled? Well, the round hole is where the rope went in. So that's where the rope goes in. The square holes or the rectangular holes, they would put in wooden spikes. Okay. And those wooden spikes is what would catch the ground when you and hook onto whatever the soil or the rocks in the ground. So that is what the anchor would look like. So we are deliberately being a little ahistorical because Gupta period anchors may or may not have looked like this. We have some evidence that they may have continued to use these, but the one that we have chosen is an older anchor or from a Harappan period, and so we'll have an anchor built in this style. And then this construction that we are building now is the hull is about 70% done, and I'll show you photos of latest situation a little later. But we have been building the ship now from the beginning of the year. And we expect that in March 2025, all things going well, we will put it in the water. These are images of the Jewel of Muscat, just for demonstration perspective. Our ship will look somewhat different. This is much narrower than the ship that we are building. And then we'll put it in the water. We will begin to fit the mast and other things. Hopefully by April, we will actually properly launch it and name it. It will be a Navy ship. So it'll be given an INSV, Indian Navy sailing vessel name. So it'll be owned by the Navy. And then we will be, while all of this is going on, we will be getting that crew. We will be given special training on how to sail square sails and other things. So I will have to get some time off to go learn sailing. Outfitting, as I said, early 2025, and then we will begin to do sea trials. There will be, of course, one problem is that when we would have liked to do the sea trials is the time when we will be having the monsoons, when it's really rough. Now, there is some debate on whether to do the sea trials in the height of the monsoons. And some people said, well, that's how the ancients sailed in the height of the monsoons. But whether or not we want to take a bunch of novices, well, they are not novices as sailors, but they are novices at using this particular ship and try to mess around with it. We'll take a call on it. But anyway, hopefully by September, October next year, we will have some experience of sailing the ship. And then the idea is to take it on its first voyage. So, as you know, in ancient times, there were two directions you could go. You could go east or you could go west. So we have decided that the very first voyage of this is going to be westward. So since we are building this in Goa, we're going to sail up to Gujarat from a place called Mandvi. And from Mandvi, we are going to sail to Oman, Muscat. And this voyage has already been announced by the Honorable Prime Minister and His Excellency, the Sultan of Oman. Last December, they announced this. So we haven't got the exact dates, but somewhere towards the very end of 2025, we will do the first voyage. If all goes well and the wind is blowing the way we expect, which is from the north east to the southwest, then it will hopefully allow us to make that crossing reasonably easily in about 2 to 3 weeks. So roughly 2 to 3 week crossing that we estimate. And if this voyage goes well, then we will attempt to do something somewhat more ambitious, which is we will take it to the other coast, the east coast, and we will attempt to recreate something called the Bali Yatra or the voyage to Bali. So those of you who are familiar with Odisha culture, Odia culture, you will know that every Kartik Purnima, which happens in mid-November, there is a big festival in Odisha which commemorates the ancient voyages that used to sail out to Indonesia and elsewhere. And it's literally called Bali Yatra or the voyage to Bali. And our idea is to actually do such a voyage. But note, because the technology of the times and the knowledge of the seas of that time, we will not be able to go straight across. The way you have to sail in a square sail ship is that you have to follow the wind, which, as I told you, is blowing basically north-south and not going from west to east. So the way you do it is you start off in Odisha, and you use the winds to essentially sail south. In fact, southwest rather than southeast. And you end up in and around somewhere near Mahabalipuram, which is not surprising that, therefore, Mahabalipuram was a great port during the Pallava period. From there, you sail further south to Sri Lanka. And from Sri Lanka, you sail further south, and then you catch the currents, the equatorial currents. And it's using the equatorial currents that you make the Indian Ocean crossing. Which is why in many ancient texts, particularly in the Chola period, they mention that if you want to cross the ocean, you have to follow the turtles. Why are they following the turtles? Well, that's the way they would find the current. So the current would take you across. And once you hit the northern tip of Sumatra, you have a choice. You can either go by the Malacca route towards Singapore and then that way, or you can go by the western route along Singapore, along Sumatra, along Java, and then to ultimately you go to Bali. Now, this voyage is a lot longer. This is a 3-month voyage. So we will attempt to do this. And this is also a much more dangerous voyage because you do get these terrible cyclones occasionally in the Bay of Bengal, which are much more rough than the ones you get in the Arabian Sea. And so this is a voyage we'll only attempt after we are successful. And assuming that both these voyages go well and the ship is in good shape, we will bring it back, and we are building a new maritime museum, as some of you may heard, in Lothal. So the ship will then get displayed in Lothal. So here are the wind patterns, etc. As I said, we will be using some of these wind patterns. We have also been mapping out the wind speeds. You obviously need to take care of the service current vectors, etc., because when you're dealing with a very small ship, which is doing 2-3 knots at best, all of these things matter. Wave heights, very important in case we get stuck in a storm. And then here is how the hull is shaping up. As you can see, they're building it from ground up. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So now I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Is there a Q&A? Yeah. Should I go out? Stay. Okay.
Okay, that was indeed an amazing presentation by sir. Now, here comes the best part of the session, which is the question and answer session. Now, since DMET Samvaad has received a lot of emails from many cadets regarding this particular topic, particular project, it was not possible to take entire questions. So we decided that we would merge the relevant questions, which would be moderated by our convener as per the original program schedule.
Now, we would like to again invite Ashutosh Kashyap sir and Harsuna sir to the stage to moderate the question answer session. They are finance professionals and research scholars who are jointly working on several projects, including economic development on conflict zones and net zero emission in maritime sector. Sir, please.
Thank you, Dipanjan. And thank you, Pratyush, for this last minute addition. It looks really nice. So we got a lot of questions, and it was, since students were highly motivated by this kind of presentation, sir. So the first question we will be taking from one of the students, Muhammad Imad Khan. Imad, if you can come in the front and just ask. He has two questions, sir. He will merge both the questions and ask, please. Imad is second year cadet of IMA Kolkata, and he has two questions.
Good evening, sir. My question is, can these ships realistically compete in terms of cost effectiveness, or is their sole purpose just to preserve our heritage?
No, I don't think they're cost effective anymore. We may learn something interesting about flexible hulls or some small things, but I'm not attempting to revive this tradition other than in a cultural sense and a historical thing. So, so to be clear, this is not it's a reconstruction. It is not a revival. It is, yeah, they're not expensive to build. This whole project to build the ship at least is only 15 crores. It's not a lot of money. But on the other hand, keeping it going is very, very difficult because you have to continuously fix it. It leaks a lot of the time. Obviously, it's very slow compared to a modern ship. So no, this is not an attempt to revive it other than maybe as a cultural or maybe even for recreation purposes. Very, very few sailors would want to sail a ship that is this complicated to sail. And of course, they're also risky. I mean, they develop leaks. They don't, especially if you're taking it into an area which has got lots of other large ships. Like I'll give you the example, Captain Saleh, who's my friend from the Omani Jewel of Muscat. He sailed his ship to Singapore. Okay. He told him that the element, he got into many storms and many other things that happened, but he ultimately said that was not as scary as going through the Malacca Straits with these gigantic oil tankers going past you, because those oil tankers couldn't see us. I mean, even though we had this light blinking on the top of the hull, etc., and if the oil tanker came anywhere near, there's nothing you can do because the oil tanker can't change direction because it's too big, and you are running on sails, you can't change direction either. So he said that was the most hair-raising part of the thing. So no, these are not practical things for modern times. This is This is an adventure. It's a recreation. It's a cultural reconstruction.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Imad. You have any follow-up question?
Uh,
Please be very, very precise. Okay.
All right, sir.
Okay.
Sir, apart from being investing in this adventure and preserving the heritage, can these type of ships be capable to withstand our logistics and
No, as I said,
naval?
technology has moved very, very far. These were outdated technologies even in the 16th century, which is why it died out, right? So this is unless somebody really thinks of some new thing. Maybe we'll learn something interesting from the use of a flexible hull, which nobody has modeled, which I am doing. And maybe but even if we use flexible hulls, I don't think they're building wooden ones. They'll probably build fiberglass ones. So maybe there's something to learn, but do not think of this as a commercial project. It is not a commercial project. It is a cultural project. It's maybe even partly a scientific project in a retrospective sort of way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Imad.
So, Raghav Dhaka, fourth year cadet, has mailed us a question. How we are planning to integrate this initiative without being in competition with the global logistics market, and how do we foresee this heritage renewal contributing to India's logistics sector and long-term benefits?
Not at all. Not directly anyway. The idea here is not to try and create stitch ships to try and compete with oil tankers. Obviously, I can't. The idea is a completely different one, and in some ways a more fundamental one. You see, what we are trying to do here is changing the way we Indians think of ourselves. We have come to think of our history as, a series of invasions or maybe some bhakti movement, etc. All very important, I'm sure. But you see, there is another element to our history, which is the history of commerce, of adventure and exploration. Whenever we think of explorers, the average Indian will think of Columbus or Vasco da Gama. They don't think of Indians as being explorers. They don't think of Indians as risk takers. And yet, it is we who have the more ancient history of risk taking and adventure and exploration. So this is, in a very fundamental way, an attempt to awaken India to its civilizational past. So I think in some ways this is a very important project, but its importance does not lie in trying to actually revive and change logistics based on this.
Benefits to cultural preservation would definitely be there, I guess.
Ma'am has one question.
Ma'am has a question.
Very simple question, very fascinating stories. Did the Cholas use this technology because they used that route to go to Indonesia?
So they did use stitch ships, yes. Did they use the one that I'm building? No, because remember, we are dealing with vast amounts of time, and the technology probably shifted along the way. Not probably, definitely shifted along the way. So in fact, the Jewel of Muscat, which I showed there, is probably closer to the ships that were being used in the Chola period, because that's a 9th, 10th century ship. I am from 500 years earlier, so my ship is more archaic.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is from Ishwara Arun Kishore, sir, who is an associate professor. Sir, if you can come in the front and ask the question. Yes.
Can somebody give him the mic?
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir is teaching the cadets about the marine engineering, so he had some question.
Good evening, sir. A wonderful presentation. Actually, I am really happy to see that you are trying to preserve the heritage. So there are quick two questions actually, one after the other. The stitch ship which you have shown actually, I mean, in the more recent times, to my age, when I was studying my LKG, where in Yanam, my school is actually a Shiva temple. It's on the bank of Yanam. I used to see the ships, small boats. Then the bridge was not there between the Yanam and the other island. They used to tie actually two wooden ships and transport lorries on that with ropes. Do you think this is a kind of stitch ship, actually tying up two ships and
Absolutely. So this technology is still so sort of remembered, but this is rapidly dying out, as you know. So the reason I thought we have to do it now is because one more generation, we just won't have the artisans and the cultural knowledge. So for example, Babu Sankaran, he comes from Bepur. His family has built these kinds of ships for thousands of years. His son doesn't want to do it. So it will die perhaps with him unless he finds a chela of some sort who is willing to carry on. But what we are doing is, one, we are building, but very importantly, we are recording it in fair detail as a cultural heritage so that future generations, if they want to build one or want to know how it was built, and they will be able to do this. So the reason I am doing it now is because precisely there are still a few people who have at least some knowledge of how this stitching technique works.
Thank you, sir. And slightly drifting questions. I mean, so looking at your passion actually to preserve the heritage, I would just point out one more thing, which is very relevant to musical instrument. It's called veena. People recently, when my brother-in-law was working on that project, there is only 5 families he could locate who make the traditional veena from one small village called Bobili.
Building a what? Sorry, Meena?
Veena, yes. It's a musical instrument.
Veena, okay, Veena, okay.
And there are 5 families who know the technique. They dry down the vegetables and then they make an instrument out of it. And there are very few people who know about it. And when they order, you should see the beauty of their concerns. Since they meticulously make this veena out of their passion, not for money, they travel all the way by train to hand deliver that particular veena, because they understand that it's a very delicate instrument and anyone would just misplace it. And what you can even see their passion. So they book a berth in sleeper class train for the veena. They place it on the berth and then they transport it. I mean, when you spoke about the stitch ship, I just thought I remembered these two. I think
so. There are many such skills which are
unexplored.
Yeah, will die out unless enthusiasts keep it alive. In other countries that have rapidly modernized, many interesting things have not only been kept alive, some people have been revived also. So for example, in Japan, they have beautifully revived the sword making and sword fighting techniques, archery, and these kinds of techniques have been preserved by small groups. They're also very often 5-6 families that do it. But then there's now a group of enthusiasts who collect these things and so on. Same thing has happened in Europe as well. You have many dying Europeans artisanal skills which have been preserved by. And now very expensive to buy those, but there are some families who are now doing it and preserving it. In India, we haven't developed the culture of enthusiasts. Veena actually may be one of the few areas where at least there'll be some enthusiast music, etc. keeping. But there are many, many other skills that are rapidly dying out. So in this particular case of ships, for example, I found nobody else was interested. So I took it up. And now I have created a whole culture around it. Once we name the ship, we will have its own Twitter handle, and we will fully broadcast the thing, and then hopefully we will turn into a documentary. So in a sense, at least this thing will create a small enthusiast group which will keep it alive. Otherwise, these things die out very, very quickly. One generation and this disappears.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will ask just one more question from the cadet, and then I will open the dice for the audience. Okay. So the question is from Lady Cadet Shreya V. Pillai. Her question is, can you elaborate on the collaborative efforts which is happening between different ministry and organizations? And what ancient maritime route this project, when it will be completed, it is supposed to follow? And another addition question from my side, sir, how the cadets who are sitting over here can contribute to this project, sir?
So obviously it requires huge, I talked about it. It's funded by the Ministry of, well, it's conceptualized by the Prime Minister's Economic Council, just because I'm there. Then funded by the Ministry of Culture. So the building is being done by Hodi, which is a private shipyard, but supervised by the Indian Navy. And then it will be crewed by the Indian Navy as well. But then when we are doing international voyages, we will be dealing with the Ministry of External Affairs, because we'll be visiting other countries. So there'll be that facilitation. And of course, just getting this ship all its certifications, because remember, it's a registered ship. It's not just, it's a registered ship. It's owned by the Indian Navy. So it goes through all the technical stuff, but that requires that the Ministry of Shipping and the Indian Navy have their directorate, the DG shipping has to give us lots of leeway from the usual safety requirements that a modern ship would have. But at the same time, advising us on where we have to draw a line. I mean, after all, we don't want somebody getting killed in this project either. So there are many safety protocols we will still be following in here. For example, we will carry fire extinguishers, which didn't exist in the Gupta period, but we will carry them. Another change we have made is that the lighting at night will not be done by open flame, but by electric light. Why have we done this? Because in the Gupta period, there was no glass. So even if somebody said, why don't you use kerosene lamp? We couldn't do that. That would be ahistorical as well, as ahistorical as using electricity. The only thing we could have done, if we wanted to be very strictly historical, is to use an open flame or these jars which have these perforations in them, and some light comes out of it. This is what was used. Now, modern Indians are not used to using naked flames in daily life. Ancient ones were, and it would probably be very dangerous. They were used to using open naked flames in daily life. They knew how to use it. In our case, we will be using this flame, remember, on a pitching ship with oil spilling, fire, huge fire hazard. So obviously we have made adjustments, some things which are not historically accurate.
Sir, do you have any advice for the cadets, or whether you will be offering?
So you can definitely, if you're visiting Goa, if you have site visits, please go to Hodi. In the next 6 months, if any of you are in Goa for whatever reason, just visit Hodi in Diwar Island. They are very happy to have visitors. The ship is being built in an open space, so you can go and see it for yourself. And once it gets built, obviously this is a highly specialized thing. So we are not taking random people for training. So, but on the other hand, if you want to be a part of the journey, we will have social media involved. Tell other people about it. And yes, this is a ship for one period. We have a long history. Think about another period. Build a ship from there. Maybe you can build a Maratha Galbat or a Gharaib or something. I personally have already got a design of a Gharaib. And maybe if this goes successfully, then we will try and build a Maratha era ship, which will be much, much more modern and much faster and nailed and but it's a completely different design, heavily influenced by European designs of that time. But, you can think of other ships. And by the way, why just ships? There are interesting maritime traditions in Bengal, which you can explore. There are a couple of enthusiasts and historians who have written books about them. There are still some traditional shipbuilders who build ships which are from 18th and 19th century designs. Maybe some of you can raise money and build a recreation 18th or century ship and sail it up and down the Hooghly. I don't know. Maybe IMU should own one of these things.
Okay, thank you, sir. And now the dice is open for the students. Can we have
students and
everybody?
Yes,
alumni, everybody. Yes,
there's
sir.
a gentleman right in front.
We will be taking just 4 questions.
Yeah, there's a gentleman right in front. He can get him a mic.
Can we have the microphone?
Yeah. No, you can get the mic.
Thank you, sir, for the great presentation that you have made. Very exciting as a naval architect. So what is the timber that you will be using for the ships?
So the timber is different for different parts. So there is something called a jack tree, not a jackfruit tree, jack. which is all, by the way, all the timber we have got is from the Western Ghats, because we did not import any timber or get it from other parts of India. It has to be from the Western Ghats, and that is fine because Babu Sankaran, as I said, had all the traditional knowledge on this. So there's a jack tree, which is a heavy timber, which is being used for the keel, which has to be very heavy, and some of the cross beams and so on. But then there are parts where we have used other kinds of teak for some things and many other kinds. So mast is being built, I think, with teak. But there are other wood is used for different parts. Jack wood is used, which I wasn't familiar with.
Okay,
till I began doing this.
we have one more question. Can we have the microphone at that?
There.
Yeah, you can give it to him and then we can go there. Give it to him.
Give it.
Give it to him, then we'll go to the other side.
Please, give your introduction. Just one or two lines, please.
Good evening, sir. I work for 1 year just beside at GRSE at Garden Reach Shipbuilders. Sir, two questions for you here in brief. Number one, the more we reconstruct or revive or restructure, does it actually make America feel bad?
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean,
America tends to dominate everyone and pressurize everyone.
it's not a question related to the topic of the day, I'm assuming.
Okay, then the second point is, whenever we talk about reviving, restructuring, and putting things back in place, almost very much so, should there be economic incentives or should it come directly from the heart?
No. I mean, the point of the matter is these kinds of reconstructions are obviously meant for, this is not a commercial project. It's a cultural project. It has a real world impact. So it's not in the sense that it does bring back a certain pride, a sense of risk taking and adventure, as I mentioned. So in that indirect sense, it has real life, even commercial impact. I mean, if many of you and the next generation of shipbuilders in India and seafarers in India are imbibed with the spirit of adventure because their ancestors did all these things, it's a good thing. It has real world impact. But is it the case that this particular ship is a commercial ship? No, it's not.
We can have 2-3 more questions. First from the gentleman sitting there. He had raised his hand.
There'll be after that one more question.
After that, one more question from the cadets, and then we will wrap up. Okay, sir.
Okay, there.
Next question we will be taking from the person at the back.
Hello. Actually, my question is not on this stitched ship project, but on marine engineering as a whole. India has water all around it, but Spain, being a small country, has created armada and ruled the world. Why can't India have promoted marine to that level where people like us who love to be engineers can become a marine engineer or want to become a marine engineer?
So, I mean, Spain in its day was obviously dominated the seas, but let me say ancient India dominated the seas. I mean, we were sailing all over. Indian merchants are there in Chinese tales. There's a very famous Japanese tale called the Tale of Genji, which is an ancient tale. It's their equivalent of the Ramayana. And it's got Indians in there.
But the way other streams of engineering have grown in leaps and bounds in India.
Yeah, wait, I'm coming to that. So if your point is about ancient India as in ancient Spain, then India has probably a much more interesting maritime history than Spain does. Having said that, if you're talking about modern times, it's not Spain, but China that dominates marine engineering today. 52% of all the ships being built in the world right now are being built in China. And if you include Korea and Japan, 92% of all the ships in the world are built in East Asia. So they are, marine engineering is now an East Asian activity. However, we do have, interestingly, India has the technology for building really complex ships. We are one of the very few ships in the world, countries in the world that can build nuclear submarines. We are capable of building aircraft carriers. For some reason, however, this has not translated into getting serious about marine engineering and shipbuilding. We produce less than 1% of the world's ships, if you exclude the naval stuff. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about. I am pushing, and you may be reading in the newspapers, a major Indian effort in the next 5 years to make India a major shipbuilding country. And we are making big changes in the financing, trying to make sure that shipbuilding gets infrastructure status, that ships get it. And the idea is that over the next decade or so, we should be at least doing 5-6% of the world ships, and over a period of time, aspire to do at least 20-25% of the world ships. Why am I reasonably confident we can do this? Is first, as I mentioned to you, we actually are one of the countries which has the engineering capability, number one. For some reason, we don't build good ship engines. That's really something people in this room should work on. But the rest of the ship, we are able to build. Two, shipbuilding is largely a young man's business. Why? Because no amount of robots is going to be able to get around the fact that you have to climb something, weld large pieces of metal together. The demographics of East Asia will not allow it to carry on. We already know that the Koreans and the Japanese want to move their own shipbuilding industry out. If they want to do it, why not to us? And I know that Hyundai and others are reaching out to India. So this is another big opportunity. It's a strategic requirement. Today, 90%, 85% of all of India's cargo is moved around by foreign ships. So geopolitically and from a strategic perspective also it makes sense. And of course, we have every other piece, as I said, not just the engineering. We make the steel, we make most parts other than the engines in India already. So we have an opportunity here to do it. And that engine part, I'm sorry, DMET, that's your problem. I'm leaving that to you to solve.
Okay, last question we will be taking from cadet. And please introduce yourself and then ask the question, please.
Good evening, sir. I am first year cadet Shiv Kumar Singh, 2024 entry batch, roll number 10346. My question is, what are the foreign cooperations do you need, as it was mentioned in Ministry of External Affairs? Thank you, sir.
Ministry of External Affairs is obvious. Like supposing I'm sailing this to Indonesia, right? I will need, for example, to cooperate with Indonesia. But if I'm going by the Malacca route, I'll have to cooperate with Malaysia. I'll have cooperation from Singapore. Obviously, a lot of what we're trying to do is a cultural outreach. So we will want to dock in many of these countries. When we dock there, obviously, we will interact with people there. There'll be the Indian communities there, the naval and marine community there. So all of this requires a lot of contacts, etc. And of course, there may be emergencies along the way. I mean, I'm sailing along the coast. God forbid, I may be sailing along the Pakistani coast and something happens. And, so you need the Ministry of External Affairs to be able to handle those kinds of situations. So yes, you have to have very good links with other countries. And of course, we have to tell the rest of the world we are doing this, because last thing you want is large ships that are unable to see us at night suddenly crashing into us.
Thank you, sir. One more question is, what are the classification of societies you want to incorporate in this project?
For the time being, because we do not know how this ship is going to sail, we are going to restrict this to a very core team, which will be specially trained from the Navy. And we may take 1 or 2 very experienced sailors from outside, but they are also ex-Navy. So basically, the Indian Navy is going to curate this for the time being. But supposing we have a good sailing to, say, Oman, and we have figured out that this is something that we are reasonably confident, then maybe on the return journey or in one of the other voyages, we could include people from other countries as well. And for example, on the return journey from Oman, we may have some sailors from Oman who may want to join us. Captain Saleh is very keen on the project, so maybe we'll bring him back. When we are going to Indonesia, we may take people from Indonesia, one of those countries. But on the very first voyage, we don't want to take chances because, as I said, this is in the first round, we really don't know how the ship will behave in open sea. So for the first round, we will be very closed about it. We will specially be training a crew for how to do it. There are many other small things which we don't know. I mean, how much does the ship leak? How much repairs do you need to do while in the sea? Because do remember, some of these, you will get barnacles growing on it. You will have other kinds of problems. How do you clean barnacles in open ocean? I don't know. So there are many things we will have to work out. So I think in the first round, we will not be too adventurous.
One request, sir. We have last question from our very senior alumnus.
Okay.
And to add up before sir asks question, see, since we have paucity of time, we will take all your questions since the project is still in the pilot stage, sir, and it is being done. And I request the cadets also to participate in this huge visionary undertaking that sir is doing. So you can mail all your questions. We will forward it to sir's office. And if you have any suggestions regarding this project also, you can please forward. Okay. Sir, please.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. My name is P.K. Majumdar, roll number 1190. I have one information for you, plus one question later. What I want to share is, since you have asked the IMU give you a roll number, if you're successful, I also say on behalf of ACDMET, which is the Association of Ex-Cadets of DMET, which has been in here since 1963. So we welcome you as a member there.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the suggestion and huge round of applause for the sir. So with this, we come to the end of the Q&A session. We have a request from Cadet Aman Raj.
I have not finished my question.
Hasn't finished.
No, what I'm asking, sir, is what about the preservation of the wood? What do you have in mind? Preservation of the wood.
So we are going to polish this with lime and kudrus. But before that, we are using coconut oil and sardine oil to first soak it in as I said, the problem obviously is that of smell. And I have been told that the sardine smell goes away, but doesn't always entirely go. You just get used to it. And then we are going to use lime to chalk it. And we are going to also use that red brick pigment also is used. These are all traditional things that are mentioned. And of course, between the joints, we are using the kudrus gum.
Sir, in this regard, I have little information. In Bengal, they use alcatra, tar, for safeguarding the wood. So this is.
Where is this? What is this exactly? Is it a?
It's tar.
Heated charcoal. Okay, if you give me the technology, I can ask them to see if there is a mention of it in the texts. We'll see. We'll test it out.
Sir, this can be made also from the palm tree juice that you make good, but which is the raw part. So they make.
Can you give me some write-up of how exactly the technique is? I can ask Babu Sankaran if they know anything about it. I'll have to be careful because I'll have to go and look up the texts if they mention it. Because if it's a later technology, then I can't incorporate it. But I will have to test it around, but I will want to document it nonetheless. Even if we don't use it, we'll document it.
So another information I want to give you is that since this is not a mechanical, the engine-driven ship, this cannot be registered on the MS Act. I have been the PO of Cochin. So you will not be able to register on the MS Act, but unless the DG gives special permission for that.
No. So these are special permissions. And this is, remember, a Navy ship. So it is an INSV ship. So this is an Indian Navy sailing vessel registration, which has its own logic. So we have gone through it, and yes, many special dispensations.
Yeah, if it is INS, no registration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we have many requests from Cadet Aman Raj and all, but I will share you the email ID. You please share your suggestions, questions. We will surely share it to guests, as it has been the tradition of our DMET Samvaad. We try to take as much as of the question and we share it with the guest. And after that, we take the detailed feedback from the guest also. But thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of the Q&A session.
Yeah, just a sec. My books are available outside. I'll wait here for a little while. Happy to sign them as well.
Sure. Sir, the session is not over yet. felicitation part and all is still left. Okay. So thank you so much, sir.
So everybody can buy book from the book stall and you can receive the signed copy from the chief guest. Thank you.
What am I saying? Yes. Well, indeed, that was a very interactive question and answer session that we just witnessed. Now, moving on to the next chapter of the program, we would now like to felicitate our honorable chief guest. And for that, I would like to invite the Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University, Dr. Malini V. Shankar ma'am, and our campus director, sir, to present the shawl and memento to the chief guest. Now, I would like to call on the stage our senior most DMET faculty, Associate Professor Ishwar Arun Kishore sir, Shri Ashutosh Kashyap sir, and Shri Harsh Sinha sir, to present another memento to the chief guest on the behalf of DMET Samvaad. A big round of applause, please. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Now, I very heartily invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Indian Maritime University, Dr. Malini V. Shankar, ma'am, for addressing the gathering. Ma'am, please.
Good evening. I think it's been a long evening. I will not give an address, but just share a few thoughts. Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, member of the Economic Advisory Council, the director of Kolkata IMU campus, the past director, senior alumni, and lovely students. Such a fascinating story and related to us in such a fascinating manner, bringing to us the history and heritage of centuries when India was at the peak of its maritime capacity. It's even more fascinating to see that with that technology, they sailed the vast seas. And some of the slides that were shown, actually in today's world, you could get the data regarding the ocean currents from Indian scientific institutions. But 2000 years ago, 1000 years ago, they did not have that scientific data. And they still had their observation skills to ensure that they sailed across the fiercest oceans to get to their destinations. Sir, I just want to share a few things. I was DG shipping before I became Vice Chancellor, and I had the occasion to visit Mandvi. Absolutely fascinating. When I thought of wooden ships, for me, wooden ships was these small ships, small boats that were shown. But I found that these wooden ships are 1,000-tonners. They have been plying, we've heard of wooden dhows. These wooden ships have been plying across the Arabian Sea between the west coast of India to the Middle East for centuries. I was on a vacation to Kutch when I took a detour and said, I want to see a ship being built. And I was absolutely stunned to see the magnitude of the ship being built. And these were being built, supervised by not modern engineering graduates, but people who knew shipbuilding, who felt shipbuilding. It was not stitching technology, but it was interlocking technology, wooden boats, wooden ships, and they were using fish oil, which didn't smell because I was there when they were applying it. They've been sailing across these seas for, as I said, centuries, and they say that they have not had a single accident in the last 50 to 100 years that it's been recorded. They have their own system of how to bring it back and maintain it, etc. And their grouse, when I went in my capacity as Director General Shipping was, the trade was reserved for them post-independence. For example, if you had to import dates from Iran, they could be imported only using these wooden ships. Now, post-liberalization, that facility disappeared, and they were struggling to see how to survive. And yes, I think the senior alumnus did say that this can't be classified under the IRS. But sir, the Merchant Shipping Act of India is perhaps, correct me if I'm wrong, the only act which actually recognizes the seaworthiness of these wooden ships that can sail in the high seas. There is simply no other country in the world which recognizes in its legislation the presence of wooden ships. Okay, it says it is not motored, but actually they have motors, but it recognizes this is the only country because there are ships being built elsewhere and they want to register it under the Indian Act because there is a provision for it. Regarding, there were questions on why we lost our skills, why we lost our premier position. History says that we were the best shipbuilders till as recently as the 17th or 18th century. The British laws brought in legislation. They knew that the Indians were very good at building ships. They brought in a legislation which said that only British-built, UK-built ships could actually carry goods between India to UK. And that's when the decline of the shipbuilding industry started. There is a revival now by the government, and hopefully we'll get the legislation and the ecosystem right to ensure that we go back there. So I would really urge the cadets and the director to organize visits to the stitch ships in Goa, also to Mandvi. So just for information, we reviewed and revised the curriculum of the university. I'm also very fascinated and passionate about the heritage and history of, among other things, of shipbuilding. And we have actually included a history of shipbuilding in the curriculum, in the revised curriculum across the schools, across naval architecture, marine engineering, and nautical science. So the students do get an idea. I think we need to know about our history and heritage. Yes, this cannot be commercial. It has to be modernized, but we need to know about our hoary past. And I think this talk that was given by Mr. Sanyal would have widened the perspective of each of the students. And finally, I would like to say that I actually had a question for you, which was not related to the topic, saying, you are an economist. What made you get so passionately into shipping and oceans? I think that we'll leave that for another day. For the moment, please let us give a big hand for this fascinating story. Yeah. And I'm very fortunate to have been able to be here to listen to this in person. A great author, economist, and a passionate person about the ships, and also a great orator, as I see, because getting the story across to a very variegated audience is not easy. So thank you very much for being here with us, accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your efforts to impart the ethos of DMET into the cadets and for enlightening us with your knowledge. I would kindly request respected Vice Chancellor, ma'am, to kindly remain on the stage for the felicitation ceremony. Now, to felicitate our Honorable Vice Chancellor, ma'am, I invite Commodore Ashok Balsar to the stage.
Well, I should mention Commodore Ashok Bhal sir has been the backbone of DMET Samvaad and rather the pillar of support. And he has been supporting DMET Samvaad.
I would request respected Vice Chancellor, ma'am, to kindly take a seat. Now, to felicitate Commodore Ashok Bal sir, I invite Ashutosh Kashyap sir, Harsh Sinha sir, and Sachin Saurav sir to the stage.
Well, a few words about Commodore Ashok Bhal sir. He has been our former campus director, a great naval leader, naval veteran.
And now, may I please call our respected campus director, Rear Admiral Amit Bose sir, to kindly come to the stage as I request Raghav Dakha sir and Sachin Bardwaj sir, DMET class of 2025, to offer him a memento from DMET Samvaad. I request Director sir to kindly take his seat.
Okay, a few words about DMET Samvaad. DMET Samvaad actually strives to strengthen the ties between her alma mater and the alumni who have been several maritime leaders in not only in the maritime sector, but also in the several non-maritime sectors and are expert academicians as well, few of whom who are with us today, right now present with us. Thank you, sir, for your presence, everyone. Can we have a big round of applause for them? So DMET Samvaad was found, it was found by Shri Harsh Sinha sir, who is a pass out batch of, who is an alumni from the batch of 2020, along with Shri Sachin Kumar Mahato sir, again a pass out batch of 2020. And under his initiative, basically, and under the advisory of Shri Sachin Saurav sir, and with the guidance of Commodore Ashok Bhal sir, our former campus director, DMET Samvaad has conquered heights because from the first offline session that had been conducted, which was with Commander Gaurav Agarwal sir, one of our most glorious alumni of DMET, and with, of course, the man himself, Commodore Ashok Bhal sir. We have come and we have conquered great heights. From the first session to numerous sessions with several maritime industry leaders, DMET Samvaad has now concluded to the 38th session, the first session which is being held offline on the very grounds of DMET. So this is indeed a matter of pride when I narrate to you, when I speak to you as the host for today's session. DMET Samvaad has also helped this campus get a lot of exposure, not only, of course, around the alumni network, but also around the globe, among other maritime training institutes and also other industries. We have had many industry professionals visit our campus, including many people from Greece, Norway, and several other European companies who are general managers. One of our alumni, Shri Anubhav Garg, is the Chief Operating Officer, COO of NYK Ship Management. And along with him, we have also had Japanese dignitaries who came straight from the head office from Tokyo to visit this campus and see what true marine engineering training is like. Now, this is one of the most interesting parts of today's session. Again, DMET Samvaad had organized a photography competition called Shades of DMET. Now, as we are very close to announcing the winner of Shades of DMET, and trust me, this is one of the most coveted awards that one cadet can ever aspire of as far as DMET Samvaad appreciation is concerned. May I please ask Shri Sachin Saurabh sir to announce the name of the winner, please. Okay, I will be the one who will announce the name. I'll take the honor of announcing the name. Okay, now this is a very, happy moment for me as I announce my batchmate Cadet Aditya Nair H, who has won the first prize. Can we have a big round of applause? I would like to ask Sachin Saurabh sir. Sir, I would like to request Sanjeev Sanyal sir to kindly hand over the award. Congratulations, Aditya. Congratulations. Again, a big round of applause, please. Now, as we come to the conclusion of this insightful event, it is essential to express our heartfelt gratitude to those who have contributed to the success of this event. To extend our sincere thanks, I would like to invite the cornerstone member who has strengthened the foundation roots of DMET Samvaad, as I mentioned a few minutes back, and making the DMET bond stronger from its lineage. Mr. Sachin Saurabh sir, roll number 8464, DMET class of 2021, to deliver the vote of thanks to you. Can we have a big round of applause again, please?
Good evening, everyone. As we conclude this remarkable session, the SIP project, revisiting our ancient maritime past, I, Sachin Saurabh, roll number 8464, from batch of 2021, filled with immense gratitude and admiration for the presence of such accomplished and inspiring individuals who have graced us with wisdom and experiences today. This session would not have been possible without the collective efforts of so many people. Today, I have the distinct honor of experiencing our heartfelt thanks to all those who have contributed to the success of this event. First of all, I would like to express my special gratitude to our esteemed guest, Sri Sanjeev Sanyal sir, member of Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister of India. Sir, your valuable insight on the today's session has provided you everyone gathered here today with profound knowledge, and it was a matter of prestige to have pioneer personalities like you as chief guest of today's session. I'm sure your vision has left an incredible mark on our cadets, inspiring them to pursue on the future on the topic. I would like to express my gratitude to the respected Vice Chancellor Ma'am, Dr. Malini V. Shankar Ma'am, former Director of IMU Kolkata Campus, retired Commodore Ashok Bhal sir, present Director, retired Rear Admiral Amit Bose sir, and for gracing the session with esteemed presence, as we are thankful for your kind support for this event. I also like to thank our beloved mentor, Shri Ishwara Arun Kishore sir, roll number 5020, DMET class of 2001. Sir, your vision and leadership have been the driving force behind many such initiatives that foster a strong connection between our alma mater and its alumni, especially DMET Samvaad. I would like to thank thank the host for today's session, Sri Asutosh Kashyap sir, roll number 7585, DMET class of 2018. I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to Sri Harsh Sinha sir and Sachin Kumar Mahato sir, both DMET class of 2020, for their remarkable initiation of DMET Samvaad and helping us preserve the through thick and thin. I would like to thank Arun Kumar Singh sir, Pulay Kumar Bhattacharya sir, and all the dignitary from AEC DMET, IMEI, Naval veteran from GRSE, respected principal of IHM, Chiranjit Goswami, Shipping and Logistic Manager, Century Plyboards, faculty, staff of IMU Kolkata campus. Also, sincere thanks to core committee of DMET Samvaad team. On a personal note, I, as one of hosts, along with Honorable Director, Rear Admiral Amit Bose sir, and Ashok Bhal sir, Associate Professor Ishwara Arun Kishore sir, will be happy to recommend some cadets to help in this nationalistic and visionary project to revive ancient maritime past. Thank you, everyone. Now, please stand up for national anthem. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, I would like to request Sanjeev Sanyal sir, Malini V. Shankar ma'am, Ashok Bhal sir, Amit Bose sir, and all the organizing committee for a group photography session.
I would like to announce that we have organized a high tea ceremony right after the event, and I would request the guests to remain seated as we proceed towards the next chapter of the event. And I would like to mention that the cadets are to leave from the entrance that is designated to their right side, and the guests are to leave the entrance that is designated above the auditorium gallery.
I request the honorable dignitaries to please come up on the stage. We can have one group photograph. Actually, the cadets want a group photograph. Cadets, please assemble on the backstage, please. Please, organizing team. Please. Organizing team, please come. Organizing team who are in the backstage, please come. Please join. Thank you so much. And huge round of applause as we come to the end of this event. There is a book stall of the books which are written by our honorable chief guest. If anyone would like to purchase it or have a look, they can.